Sweet.
So this is our tree, is this?
No, they're up there. They're at the top there, but we're just saying where we are. Yeah.
Thank you, camera.
So right now we are at the entrance to Albert Park, or formerly known as Te Horotiu Pa. This is one of the old battle installments or battle pa that was used by Ngāti Whātua. We're just going to head up here to two of the trees in this area known as Ngā Rākau o Te Mate, or the trees of the dead, or Ngā Rākau o Rarohinga. They have a few names, like the trees of hell, the trees of death, and basically these trees were trees specifically used in the ritual of preparing dead bodies for cannibalism, for consumption. This is also one of the pa, or old Māori villages, where they used to prepare and preserve and shrink the old Māori heads that they would create, the moko mokai or the toi moko. So we're just going to stand under one of those trees now. To the right of us is one of the main ones. To the left is one of those ones I mentioned earlier, the pūriri trees. As you can see, it's quite large. So basically, prior to English arrival, the tribe of Ngāti Whātua settled here as part of their, like, an armament village. This was a battle regiment. It had the added advantage of having a hilltop area to see the rest of the city. You could see your enemies arriving by sea on the original foreshore of Auckland City, but these trees here, specifically what we're going to talk about now, when an old war party would travel through from village to village, what they would do is any enemies that would be captured would either be divvied up into two categories. So you'd get the ones that were going to be used for taurekareka or slaves, and then the other ones you'd get used for kaitangata. Now, the ones that would be chosen to be eaten, there was a ritual that was specifically used for cannibalism. Those ones would be brought back to the tribe. The ones that would be divvied up to be slaves or taurekareka would have their necks tattooed, which is why I keep my neck free from any tamako or tattoos to this day. That was to signify which ones belong to which sect in the village.
How long did they last? The people, you know, if they were going to get eaten, were they slaves for a while, or? Nah,
so the ones that were made for slaves would be have their necks tamakoed. The ones that were going to be used for consumption would be killed on the spot. It'd be kind of like the apocalypto, basically, when they'd arrive to the Incan cities and have their heads chopped off. It was instant.
What was the kind of ritual for that? Was it similar to the, you know, what was the...
Well, it started with the haka. The war dance. So you'd start with your haka. The battle would initiate. The winning side, or the victors of that battle, would then determine what the enemy would be used for. There were some that would wipe them all out, like kill the rest of the remaining enemies on the spot. Or when they were brought to the village, one of the chiefs' wives would have the task of doing the process for cannibalism or kaitangata. It started with karakia. They would bless these bodies before killing them. Then the Māori warriors who were chosen to go through they had to go through a process of tapu, of becoming tapu themselves. They weren't allowed to consume any other foods they had to fast for a few days. The bodies would be, first they would remove the head and hang the bodies up in these trees to drain them of their bloods and oils. These are the very same trees around us that we can see now. There's a pūriri tree over there. The pūriri tree was the main tree used for draining bodies. There's also a tree across here in Albert Park.
How did they like chop their heads? Like, what did they use? How did they do it?
Patu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a greenstone patu.
Just from the neck?
Yeah, pretty much. Just bash that thing off. So basically, if you've ever seen a greenstone mere used in practice before, it is horrific to see what the actual damage one of those things can do. When a family member of mine was going through their 21st ritual, they were given a greenstone mere that was carved by my uncle Jack, who has a full-face tamako. And to test the strength of the mere, he did a demonstration against a cow skull, and he smashed the greenstone mere straight through the cow skull. It decimated the cow skull. Now, I don't know about you or me, but I know that my skull is nowhere near as dense or hard as a cow skull. You could imagine it wouldn't be that hard or that many blows to actually remove a head from the rest of the body or the torso. Now, once it was removed, it was actually the chief who specifically specialized in the art of head shrinking. So there were a few processes that they had to go through. First, the head would be placed into flax baskets, and they would soak the heads in the ocean for a couple of days. Now, what this would do is it would cause the head to bloat. It would absorb all of that, the moisture of the ocean, but also the salt content in it was what they were trying to soak into the skin. Once pulled out of the baskets, they would go through a two-phase drying process. The first phase was being buried in dry sand, about that deep, no deeper than the top knot of their head. So they would bury them up to their top knot, and you'd be able to see the top knot sticking out of the sand, basically. And that's how you would know that some heads were being prepared for preservation. Now, what that would do is the dry sand would draw all of the moisture out of the head. So this was a process that had to be done over a couple of days. Each day you'd dig up, place it into some new dry sand, and this process of the dry sand drawing out the moisture plus the salt content mixed in the ocean would cause it to start preserving. Now, this is of course after the brains had been removed via the nostrils. They used a similar method to the Egyptian technique, where they would go through the nasal cavity. They would break one of the ligaments in there, or the cartilage in your nose, and then remove it via the hook style taonga that you would wear. This is similar to the one of Te Ao Maui. They'd hook the brain out of the nostrils, and then the brain was chosen to be given to one of the warriors of the war party. So the warrior that the chief deemed the wisest of them would receive the brain to consume. Consumption of the brain was believed to absorb the knowledge of your enemy and the wisdom of your enemy. Ko te tangata ko te manu e kai te miro nona te ngahere, ko te tangata e kai te mātauranga nona te ao. Now that quite literally translated to the person who consumes knowledge, not, so a lot of people mistake that saying for the person who learns more. No, that was an old Māori saying to do with the consumption of human brain. Now those who eat the brain of another person gain the world, basically. The heart was another special part of the human body that was chosen specifically and was given to the bravest person in that war party. The heart was then consumed, and it was believed to give them the rage and courage of their enemy. They would consume it and become give them the strength of 10 warriors, and basically make these people feel invincible. Now, with the concept of hindsight and things like knowing about like placebo effects and things like that, we have no way to tell whether or not these were very real magic abilities attained by these ancient Māori warriors. We'll never know that, but what we do know is that they still firmly believed it strongly enough that the English had to create a law against it, or known as the Suppression of Tohunga Act. But again, once those heads had been dried, first stage of drying through burying in the sand, they would pull these heads out of the sand and then use a smoking method. So they would tie them by their top knot. They would create a kind of like if you had a spit roast set up, but it was just used to hang these heads. They would use a special smoke from harakeke fibres and dry up these harakeke fibres and smoke it. So it wasn't a fire, it was just a nice light smoke mixed with manuka, or tea tree as they call it now. So the combination of tea tree and harakeke fibers produced a special type of smoke that was with some karakia that were spoken during the smoking ritual. During the smoking ritual.
What were those karakia?
Those karakia were reserved only for the females that were preparing the dead bodies, so I know none of those karakia. I only know the closing karakia for after you've consumed a human, which was spoken by the kaumātua on the marae. But there is probably some kuia that I can kōrero to that may or may not be able to pass us that knowledge. I never researched it or went in that route because for me to respect the culture and respect that those were solely for tohunga wahine to perform those rituals, that there was a reason behind that. Now the reason behind that is that female were believed to hold the purest form of magic in the Māori kingdom, which was the magic to create life only through hineahuone, or through female would we gain the ability to continue life. And there was something special that the Māori held dear inside them about the fundamental nature of females creating the human form. So unfortunately I don't know the karakia that were used for the cannibalism ritual. I don't know the ones that were used for smoking, for the heads being hung on the trees, or the one that was used just before they would feed the young Māori warriors. But again, there is possibilities. Huh?
Did they eat the brain or the heart raw?
Well, it's just been smoked. Oh yes, the brain and heart were eaten raw, but the rest of the human body, which there's still arms, legs, torso, thighs there we've got, those were all cooked via hangi. So the village would share in that meal afterwards, but the Māori warriors that were to eat brain or to eat heart, also to partake in the consumption of the human body, was they would have their hands and feet bound. So this is all villages that were male would have their hands and feet bound. Only the females could handle the meat themselves, and the reason being was that because women held the ability and the first true magic of the life creation magic, because they held that, it was only through females that we were able to consume human. It was only the female that was allowed to basically for us to eat the dead, because they bring life into the world. It is only through the female that we eat life or take life from this world. So that's how the circle of life for nature for kai tangata or cannibalism went inside the Māori kingdom.
The men didn't eat?
The men ate, but they never handled the meat directly. So there are some famous paintings of Māori warriors with their hands and feet bound, and old puia feeding them by hand, feeding them the human body. So they would have their eyes closed and consume the human that way, and solely because of their respect and belief in these rituals that they had indoctrinated into their society. Now there's a tree there. One last thing wanted us to look at before we leave to the cemetery, if we have time for that, is to head over to the hollow tree, and then we'll be done here, bro, in the city.
Awesome. It's like a Māori Wizard of Oz, eh?
Yeah, hard out.
Like, give you the courage, give you
Yeah. Bro! Oh my god! The tinny man? Nah. Jesus. Oh man, that's so good. I love your mind, how it works. Bro, it's like a Māori Wizard of Oz. Yep, pretty much. I'm gonna steal that if you don't mind. Yeah, no. Oh, so good. The chief was the wizard, just like, oh yes.
If they only had a heart.
Yeah. Bunch of Māori warriors, heading out on a war party. So this tree here, bro, is look at the rest of the, wait, just stop here for a second. Look at the rest of the trees around us, guys. We are not deep autumn right now. We're at the rekindlance of life. We're coming into spring, and then lo and behold, this horrific thing. This tree is one of the most tapu trees of the of Te Horotu Pā that is just, it's just horrific. So every crevice, every single area of this tree was used to drain dead bodies, but not so much. These were the ones that were preserved not for eating. These ones were taurekareka, or the slaves. So as you can see here, there's tunneling through the roots of the trees. That is where they stuffed dead bodies. Now the centre of the tree used to be similar to He Waikumete, or the cemetery of Waikumete is named after a wood pigeon bowl, which was like a bowl that they carved out of wood, and this bowl was used to drink water out of. The centre of the tree was the shape of kumete, He Waikumete. Now if you go around here to the side, it has been vandalised in later years and cracked open, but known as the hollow tree. This tree at one point of time, the centre of it was shaped like a bowl. They kept stacking taurekareka inside of it, and the bodies rotted and rotted until it rotted through the tree, through the centre of the tree. They just kept stacking bodies in it. They would shove bodies into the roots and crevices of this body. Over 8,000 bodies during the time of Te Horotu Pā reigning as the main pā of Ngāti Whātua village were stuffed into the centre of this tree, rotting at it, eating away the tree, and also, while at the same time giving it a source of nutrients in the form of blood and bone. Now if you go and get some filming in there if you want, man, you can have a look through these holes on the tree where we're literally stuffing and packing bodies. There was just too much.
Yeah, and why are they stuffing them here? Just to, what's the purpose?
Taurekareka, this was the burial grounds of our slaves.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the Ngāti Whātua slaves would be buried in this tree because they had been used as slaves. They weren't fit for consumption.
Oh, okay.
Only the brave Māori, only the brave warriors were eaten. Yeah.
Cool.
So this tree, it's just always made me feel unsettled, eh?
And how did they decide between who were slaves and who were
Tāmoko on the neck.
What was the decision before then?
I think it came down to the broken and the brave. So the ones that were broken would get used for taurekareka or slaves, and the ones that were brave would be consumed. So I've always put it down to those two, the broken and the brave. So during these war parties, you're going face-to-face clash. Fights were different back then. The English fought with guns and stuff during this period of time. This was the last period of humans or men that fought, like up until UFC days, where you fought within taiaha range or patu range of your enemy. You were close, So in an exchange of blows or in a battle of that nature, you're learning about each other as you're fighting each other. So after the war party has come through and a big war has happened, ko tai mai te pakanga, there's an old saying of war has arrived. Basically, in that exchange of blows, in that exchange of violence between these other people, you would know who the broken and the brave were. There were ones that would get broken by that sort of exchange, and there were ones who would still remain hearty, brave. The ones that were brave would eat their brains and their heart, and the ones that weren't would be the ones preparing their kin to be eaten for cannibalism. So in the Māori cultural pre-colonial Māori, that was what it was about. You earned respect through fear, you earned respect through hard, and they were a warfaring culture just like the Spartan people. The respect was given through this exchange of violence. And unfortunately, the category of men fell into one of those two distinctions, whether they were broken or brave. So.
And what happened to like the women and children of war?
Well, that's the same where like they would get absorbed into tribes.
Yeah.
It was similar to Ngāpuhi turning up on your doorstep, and they would be like, look, we've got guns now and we don't have to fight with taiha, so you got the choice of joining us for this revolution, standing up against the Pākehā and fighting any of your enemies, similar to Alexander the Great in that regard. Hongihika gathered his people who he could see that through separation was how they would win. That's the big reason why today we're the only native culture in the world who has practically free rights. You know, we don't have to live on a reservation or anything like that. It was due to that whakaaro, tēnā momo hinengaro, their thought pattern, their thinking of how warfare was, that they were able to fight back and get a treaty that was, you know, although flawed, has been one of the things that's kept us separate from being absorbed into a country as other native cultures have been, just like our neighbours in Australia or in America, the Native Americans there. I think we had the added luck of being close because our country wasn't so huge. We were able to join together just enough to fight back and get that claim. But yeah, any other questions you want to ask me?
Any questions?
Pretty good, eh?
Oh yeah, just a little bit on your journey through research. Oh look, you've got some hair still there.
Oh, stop it!
What the heck?
Oh no!
Did you?
Oh, e whakatongi tēnei rōpū roto I tō ingoa tapu e manaki he rahi o mawhau I tēnei wā amene. Fuck, serious bro, just put karakia before we go.
Oh yeah, just a little bit of your journey of your research through finding these stories.
So a lot of it was, I've been raised in it, so we can go anywhere. Should we stand next to that Pākehā with the sword? While I go through my history. I'll try and stand like him too. Yeah, nah, so basically my history knowledge comes from, a lot of it comes from my upbringing. My grandmother, I was raised in total immersion of te reo Māori, so I didn't learn to speak English until I was 15. I was very closed off from the rest of the world. So I grew up with my nana and her sisters, all the other kuia coming over home and just roasting each other in te reo and kōrero paki waitata, telling stories of the old days, telling stories about taniwha, telling stories about patu paiarehe, which actually in my family has a very real, there's this weird thing, story that goes through my family about my father who has on his arm a handprint that is completely white, kind of like that Michael Jackson skin disease, but it's just there and it's in the shape of a handprint that he swears is from a patu paiarehe grabbing him in the forest when he was younger. So the knowledge and research I've done was from visiting marae, travelling up north down the line, talking to older Māori, talking to tohunga whakairo, talking to different kapahaka groups, manutaki, people from Wakahuia, and people who make haka and things like that, learning about the significance of haka, but also the Auckland Museum, I've spent hours and hours and hours in the archives of the old media footage, well, not footage, but media reels, old newspapers of when English were first arriving, and then doing independent research through the council's archives to see what the land masses look like in areas like that, and basically about roughly 6 to 8 months of research and development for each of the tours I've done. I've created 3 so far, so one for the Auckland City tour, one for the cemetery tour in Simon Street, and one that I created in the Waikumete Cemetery tour, which unfortunately we weren't allowed to launch, and then a new one that I'm working on for the Mount Eden prison. So yeah, that's all the history and stuff for me. Anything else? Any other questions, sir?
No, but sure, catch up. Do you want to get some close-up of hands and some of that sort of stuff? Oh, yeah. Let's get some close-up stuff. Yeah. Who's your favourite Marvel character?
Legion, probably.
Who?
Legion.
I don't even know who that is.
It's Professor X's son.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a show. Yeah. Oh no, Netflix. You should check it out. Finally just gotten a show on there. Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with that.
Yeah, no, you just pretend you're
Yeah, this tree haunts me to this day. I'm just like, oh, every time I see it.
So, as in the par, it was like a proper. Like it was all
Yeah, this was a full-on par, and
it's like right up to a. So
it was perfect. Like you could literally see to the bottom of Auckland City.
You stay there.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna move around.
So you could imagine like being at the bottom of Auckland City, coming up to the original foreshore on 4th Street. You'd see that happening, and one pūrere hua spin, and you'll be able to send that message to the other marae, which is now in Orake. Yeah, so Orake Ngāti Whātua had this area, and so my whānau is Ngāpuhi Ngāti Whātua Tainui. So we actually, these are all our marae, these are our old marae, including Te Mahurehure out in Point Chev, that's our marae as well. So Ngāti Whātua actually, I think they lucked out with their location, far out, it's pretty good. They got a beautiful marae there overlooking the Mission Bay, so it's pretty artsy in terms of a Māori marae, you know.
And then, so what do you do? How do you make contact? Do you just find a connection and say, hey, can I have a korero?
Yeah, literally, phone book, pick it up, ring them, ask. Yeah. Go and then ask them, any people you know that could help me with building these tales, building these stories. What was strange was I met more resistance from younger Māori or Māori that were sort of like in their mid-40s, 50s, sort of like those Rotorua sort of ones. I got more resistance from them than I actually did from the kaumātua telling me these stories, who were like, oh, chair boy, it's good to get these sort of things out there. We don't have any of our kids coming around asking us of stories anymore, and it was engaging with these kaumātua. You did not get that. Hey, nah. Engaging with these kaumātua and actually just letting them share. You'll be surprised how much knowledge you can get from one sitting with these kaumātua.
That must be such an awesome experience.
It is, and just learning to see the world through their lens as well, differently. Like te ao Māori that they grew up in is completely different to te ao Māori that I've grown up in. Being suppressed, beaten, and put down for your culture, as opposed to us. We can select te reo Māori as a language feature on the ATM when we go to get our money. That's like, how far have we come as a people, as a native culture, first and second, but also just as a country unifying that. Like, that's a perfect example. Look, we got, I think that's Sir Alfred Nathan or someone with a Māori whakairo next to them. That's pretty much the epitome of although albeit probably the whakairo should be the same height, you know, but yeah, like
When that was erected.
yeah.
Nowadays they wouldn't put something up like that.
Nah. But you know, like these sort of things, this is full cavalry gear, you know, like this park was chosen by the wealth of Auckland City to separate the wealth and the poor.
Yep.
So that side there from Princes Street onwards is supposed to represent the true wealth of Auckland City, which still remains true to this day. We've got Remuera, you know, things like Remuera, far out, indoctrinated.
Yeah. I was
Stop
saying those
it.
ones are going to be like the last ones.
Yeah.
Like Remuera, Takapuna, those will be like
Otara.
the last ones to come.
Yeah.
The whole rest of the country will say names properly and then those will be the last.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and then that everything of the poorer side was from there. So you got like the early Ponsonby people like that. Like my nana moved from the hood, which was Ponsonby, to Sunnyvale, where we've got our whānau homestead still to this day. Like now, I mean, look, it's gentrified as hell, but it just goes to show you, if you just look a little bit further into the world around you, there's some stuff you might find out, you know, there's some interesting stories to share. And that was really the passion that got me into tourism, was meeting all these people from around the world and being able to share my culture in a way that was uniquely me, that was also uniquely Auckland Ghost Tours, in a way that no other Māori were willing to share these sorts of details, or there's this big taboo thing about talking about it, about us sharing about tapu rāhui. And like I was talking to you the other day when you were interviewing me, we're all good to erect rāhui signs up in Waitakere and have all these things, but no tauiwi understands it or knows it. That's I think contradictory, and it's unfair if we are to want understanding from other cultures. We have to also share that understanding with them and the meanings behind it, so that we can, you know, as people, as the human race, we can come together more. That's something that, or whenever anyone asks me where I'm from, which is a very, very common question in Māori culture, no he koe, like where are you from? And that's us, that question is us gauging, like, we're judging you right now. We want to know if you're friend or foe, you know, and like, tribal warfare still runs very deep to this day. Like it's just exhibited in different art forms or manners now. Now it's te matatini competition, you know, and people back there, rōpū, hati, you know, like things like pā wars, you know. We still have tribal warfare, and we can still have it. We can still have tribal warfare. We just don't need to tie each other's heads in anymore, or shrink them. So, but that was my unique, like, sort of perspective on our culture, was that horror side of it. I'd always been interested in, like, man, that's like, Granddad was in World War II. Like, he might have eaten someone, you know. Like, it's not that far back in our cultural generations that they were eating people, that this was commonplace. It was only in 1830 that the Queen Victoria banned the sale and purchase of these shrunken heads, which, like, thank you very much, because in order to sustain that industry, it's an industry built up of killing each other off. Nice try, Englishman, but not today, Satan. You know, like, we ended up getting the upper hand on that part. But anything else you guys want to ask before we head out to, we can go to the cemetery or see where we are?